Thank you for joining our presentation where we will be presenting our program design principles that support intergenerational partnerships as they carry out conservation projects through our Natural Resources Conservation Academy. My name is Laura Cisneros, and I'm an assistant extension professor in the Department of Natural Resources and the Institute of Environment at the University of Connecticut.
I'm Nicole Friedenfeld, visiting assistant extension educator at the University of Connecticut.
I'm Todd Campbell. I'm a professor in science education in the NEAAEE School of Education at the University of Connecticut.
And I'm John Simmons. I'm a graduate student in the NEAAEE School of Education at the University of Connecticut.
And our collaborative team comprises a number of other folks in both extension at the at University of Connecticut, as well as other centers and institutes. So today we are going to start off by sharing the program model of one of our Natural Resources Conservation Academy programs. It's called Conservation Training Partnerships, where we specifically focus on facilitating teen and adult community partnerships to carry out conservation efforts. We'll be showing how we developed these design principles and communication pillars that facilitate these teen and adult conservation partnerships, presenting 4 design principles and 4 communication pillars, and demonstrating how these principles and pillars were integrated into different program activities, as well as providing examples of participant projects that have come out of these pillars and principles. Throughout the presentation, we'll have interactive prompts where we really want to facilitate that interaction that we would normally have at an in-person conference. So we'll encourage you to pause and contribute to these interactive prompts in our discussion board below the presentation. And we'll also have a number of resources scattered throughout the presentation, and we'll share those links in the discussion board as well.
This is a video we want to share with you. It's every year the National Science Foundation allows funded projects to share some of the work that they've accomplished with others nationally. This we wanted to show you because it exemplifies and what the kind of work we did from the voices of our participants, and it shows some of the features of what we're also going to share later on. I also want to point out that this is our 3rd video that we've made for this project, but this is the first one that won an award in the STEM for All video showcase put on by NSF.
The University of Connecticut's Conservation Training Partnerships is changing the face of conservation science. Imagine a project that connects people of different ages from different walks of life and then empowers them to understand and address local environmental conservation issues.
You learn a lot that you never normally would have.
This unique program has led to the completion of an extraordinary number of projects. More than 65 conservation science projects all over the state by more than 170 participants, all in just 3 years. Our participants aren't focused on one aspect of conservation science. They tackle it all, from using mapping technology to create interactive maps of rivers, hiking trails, or protected property boundaries, to inventorying and monitoring vegetation, invasive species, wildlife, or water resources, to creating materials to educate their community, to leading restoration efforts. At the core of conservation training partnerships is intergenerational learning. Tapping into networks across the state, we recruit teens and adults who form intergenerational partnerships.
You want to let it go?
This targeted recruitment allows us to connect to those groups who are typically underrepresented in conservation and STEM fields. Recognizing the interests of participants and connecting them to the community has led to the incredible success of this program. Through reflection and experience, we continually improve our program, providing project templates and communication pillars to support participants. This project harnesses the power of cutting-edge geospatial technology and connects it to conservation science.
I'm really excited to work with technology that I never thought I would get to use, and I'll have an amazing partner by my side.
Our intergenerational teams attended a 2-day immersive field workshop that teaches them practical approaches to conservation science. Through this workshop, we train and equip partners to use their smartphone and other technologies to become advocates and stewards for the environment and contributors to their community. This project wouldn't be possible without inviting everyone to the table. Through bringing together scientists, students, educators, community leaders, and researchers, UConn's Conservation Training Partnerships is an inclusive space that turns citizens into scientists who meaningfully contribute to their community.
Surprisingly, it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of new things that are going to be useful in the future, and it was really just a good time.
One small conservation project at a time, we are changing the equation with intergenerational teams who implement environmental solutions in communities across our state.
Our Conservation Training Partnerships program includes 3 main components. It begins with a field experience focused on natural resource science and geospatial technology tools. Then these teen adult teams collaborate together on a local conservation project. And finally, the teams share their project with the broader community.
On our program website, you can explore some of these projects that have been done by our teen and adult partnerships. And these different colored dots represent participants in a variety of programs that we have. Today, we're going to only be focusing on our Conservation Training Partnerships program, which are the orange dots. But you can click on these and learn more about the projects that these teams have done in the pop-up windows. They've covered or addressed a wide variety of conservation and community topics, as you can see here. If you're interested in learning more, you can go to nrca.uconn.edu/projects, and on that page is this filter page where you can click different conservation topics or different geographic locations and learn more about the projects done in those areas.
And I could just jump in with that slide about the availability of the previous projects. We've now started to even use those as a way to orient new participants to the kinds of projects they might take or might undertake. And so it could possibly be a resource for others too outside of our area or project that might want to give some ideas about the kinds of work that people could do in this kind of workshop.
Great.
So now we want to share a little bit about how we developed and refined the design principles and the communication pillars that sort of guide this work. So the first thing was that it's all guided by the context of our program. When we looked at the different projects, we wanted to try and figure out what made some of these projects standouts and what made some of these projects really powerful projects within their communities, and what was happening in those interactions that allowed that teen and adult partnership to really come up with a fantastic product. So we looked deeper into those specific projects, and we made some informal observations, and using that in our personal experiences within the context of the program, we made an initial list of design principles.
Can I
now
jump?
When we made our initial,
sorry, John. I would just jump into, so we did this in the context of the kinds of projects they were doing, but we also tried to think about like what our learning objectives were for the participants. And so we wanted adults and teens to learn, to recognize themselves as being able to make an impact in STEM. And so those alongside our context is what guided. Many of the principles are these kind of high leverage things we think people could do that would support accomplishing connecting adults and teens to STEM kind of work and pursuits in conservation work in their communities.
So when we looked at our initial list, there were sort of 2 ideas at play here. We had a list of things that felt very programmatic, but then we also had a list of things that felt very practical and support-based for our participants. And that's what led us to develop both the design principles and the communication pillars. From there, we grounded in the literature, particularly literature surrounding identity, equity, and community. And we used that to shape and support and guide our original list into the list that we'll present today. The other part of that was the iterative and reflexive process. So as a staff, we met and we refined these over the course of a couple of months while we planned and looked at the documents and planned our workshops and reflected on what felt most important and most powerful to support the learning objectives and the goals of the project. The last part was allowing us to map these design principles and communication pillars across our programmatic features. So that occurred in 2 phases. First, we wanted to see where this work was already happening with the support documents that we had developed, but then we also wanted to look at what were areas that we could enhance this work and really bring it to the forefront. And so that allowed us to look at our templates and our facilitation strategies and the tools we're using and find ways to bring these to the front. The pillars and principles that you're going to see today serve a dual function. They're both programmatic and support. So everything begins with our design principles. And so that's the big oval that shows over everything. Next, we add in these 4 communication pillars. Now, these pillars support the positive experiences for participants. We believe and we feel that when participants are able to really leverage those communication pillars, they have really positive experiences, and they're able to disrupt these traditional arrangements of intergenerational partnerships and deeply engage in the project itself. And that the design principles combined with the support of the pillars allow our participants to take their projects to new levels.
And if you look, what we want to share next are some of the some of the ways that we've tried to map and put into the supports that we offer participants or use with participants. We're gonna share some of how those are mapped into these documents that we use.
So I want to highlight some of these documents that we're going to be referring to. In our field experience, we provide our teen adult teams with 2 different types of support documents. The first one is a brainstorming conservation projects worksheet. And so this helps lay the groundwork of them developing their conservation projects, which we'll be referring to in the next couple slides. And then we provide them, once they've identified more of their conservation interests as well as their community needs, we have a couple different types of project templates that are around different type of conservation topics. So the example here is an invasive plant template, and so I'll be referring to this later on in the presentation. And these resources are located on our website. We'll again provide these links down in the discussion board.
So now we're going to talk about our design principles. There's 4 of them. The first one is teen and adult interest and identity. So we're interested in trying to elicit and build on the teen and adult interest and identity. So we think, part of our objectives in this project is to support the future generation, but also existing generation in continually connecting to STEM work that's in conservation and communities. The next pillar or next design principle is community need and real world challenge. So not only does this is this set up to benefit the community, but it's also set up as this kind of learning objective. So what we know about learning would say real world pursuits and challenges matter. So if somebody can be oriented to that in the work that they do, then it gives them an opportunity to use knowledge as they're learning knowledge, and then to see the power of that knowledge. And so that's one of the reasons for that. Disciplinary knowledge and practice. This is parallel to the last one where there's really important disciplinary ideas and practices that have over time been developed because they're helpful in doing kind of conservation work or whatever disciplinary work is happening. And so giving participants a chance to understand and then see those powerful ideas and use them, I think that's what helps communities and also helps them connect to disciplines. And then the last one is community by sharing publicly. So they one of our design principles is having them share their work at the conclusion of their project. And part of that is for the benefit of the community, but part of it is also for recognition, so they can recognize themselves as being able to contribute to this work and also be recognized by other people, valued others, which sets them, we think, on a trajectory to want to engage in more of this work and be capable of doing that.
So we want to take a moment and have you pause this video to reflect on one of our first prompts. And so we are really interested in learning more about times that you have been a part of intergenerational partnerships to carry out either conservation work or other type of efforts. When we refer to intergenerational partnerships, these may look like family partnerships or teacher-student partnerships, as well as in the case often in our programs, it's teen and local adult volunteers that often don't know each other. So we want to hear about a diversity of times that you have been worked with partnerships bring together both youth of different ages as well as adult lifelong learners. And we are also adding this prompt here so that you can reflect on how these design principles might fit into existing programs or future programs that you may be facilitating. All right, the first design principle. Again, this one is to encourage participants to connect their conservation project to both their prior experiences, their interests, but again, not just of that of the teen, but also the adult partner. And so we've built this into multiple sections within our brainstorming template. And so again, this brainstorming template is meant to walk someone through step by step developing their project. And so first we have them get to know one another, their interests, not only in STEM and science and environment related fields, but also with regard to other interests in the arts or technology or sports, etc.
And part of what I think we want to accomplish here too is connecting the work that they're doing. We want to think about the assets and resources they bring to the work. So we don't want to orient toward our participants deficitly. We want to hear what kinds of things they've been interested enough in to learn about, and then how they might bring that learning that they've already experienced in and connect it to something local and then use it. So I think it supports us in helping them use that kind of as stepping stones to move their work forward and to recognize one another for those things.
And I also think it breaks down some of the potential barriers of access to engagement in science and conservation work, which is something that we all feel strongly that anyone can be engaged in that work.
And so one example of our teen and adult partnerships doing this is this team pictured here. So this teen and this adult partner did not know each other prior to this program. They came together, they met each other at our conservation and geospatial technology workshop, and that's where they learned about their unique interests. The teen was really interested in geology, and the adult partner worked for a local state agency and had just also a genuine interest in hiking new trails, and knew of a local park and trail system that didn't have a trail map available for it. So they combined these interests and created this interactive trail map, which you can see pictured here. And this is located online for the organization that is affiliated with this park. And someone can now go and virtually explore various geological features along this trail system, which are these different little balloon icons. And then these balloon icons will pop up and show you the geological feature there, some information about it, but they also got creative, and when they were looking at these geological features, they noticed that some of them looked like different other natural features that you'd find in the world, like this rock looked similar to an elephant. So they got fun with it and brought in those creative sides that they were interested in.
And
oh, sorry, yep, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that part about allowing them to be creative, like that's our attempt to think about how we can make STEM experiences more expansive. So like so it would broaden the opportunities for participation. It also sits well with how we think about identity of who we think we are, and that people have multiple identities. And if we can take two things that they really identified with and bring them together. Like that's more of an opportunity for them to find meaning in this work.
So principle 2 is to connect the project to community need and a real world challenge. And we have the participants revisit this idea both when they're brainstorming initial project ideas, as well as when they're trying to fine tune the project that they have, the project idea that they've settled on. And so on the left-hand side of the screen is just a snapshot from our brainstorming worksheet, where we first have them get to know their community. What are some issues or needs that they've already noticed in their community? We have them do a deeper dive and do some research on that as well. And then make sure that when they're outlining their project ideas, they're bringing both interest and community need together when they are outlining those initial project ideas. Once they've settled on a project, and I'm just using this invasive plant project template as an example here, we've peppered throughout this template little prompts to have them reflect again. Why is their project important to their community? To make sure that when they're designing and developing it, it will lead to benefits and actually addressing whatever community need or issue they had originally identified. So again, we would like you to pause and take a moment to reflect on a community need or issue that is of relevance to you and where you are located. We recognize that in many cases, community needs are very unique to where you come from, but in some cases, we've seen similarities across broad geographic locations. So we would love to hear some of the community needs that you and your participants address. So the example for Principle 2 was this partnership that recognized a community need with a number of trees that were impacted in their urban parks by various diseases, but in particular emerald ash borer, and this tree on the left-hand side was being removed because of emerald ash borer. And there was the surplus of wood that was being wood chipped and disposed of and not utilized. That does two things. You lose that carbon storage, and it's a valuable natural resources product. And so the community partner and student in this example did not know each other. They came together in this program, and the student had a genuine interest in forestry, and the community partner knew of this community need. And together they developed an urban reuse program where they were working with the city to collect these trees that were being removed and make them into these beautiful benches that were then placed back in city parks.
We feel like that strong connection to the community strengthens those participants' ties to the community itself and really builds a greater sense of belonging. When you walk around and see something that you built and something that you're a part of, it really makes you feel like this is your community.
And I would say just about the community, like this is the part about authenticity, like it's I think when you connect learners to something they know and care about, like that matters. And so making, like, not just having them focus on some global conservation issue, but having them focus on something that's local that'll have maybe an impact is really important.
Great. The idea behind Principle 3 is that participants should utilize the knowledge of experts in the field when planning and completing their project. These connections allow for partnerships with a range of people, including scientists and community organizations. We've embedded Principle 3 into our project development templates, and it's revisited at multiple points throughout the project. We have the participants highlight specific resources where we ask them to find specific resources that are related to those projects and guide them through that process.
And I think this connects well with like our idea, like we really want this project to be born out of the participants' interest, but we also think even our own work, we understand how we can learn new ideas that are really important we may not have thought about or thought with. And when we are intentional about reaching out and finding those things, they're really helpful in moving our own learning forward, but also probably moving our work forward.
The team pictured here is a perfect example of Principle 3. They reached out to a variety of experts to gain insight and understanding about their project topic, which focused on beavers. They toured the University of Connecticut's biodiversity research collections to learn more about local mammals, especially those associated with wetlands. They also conducted interviews with a UConn graduate student studying wetlands and a biologist at a nearby nature center. The interactive online product created by this team won the Esri National Story Maps competition. Principle 4, sharing the project with the community and broader public serves two goals. First, it instills a sense of pride in the accomplishment of both partners. Second, it informs the public about community members who are actively engaged in community improvements. Our project development templates prompt participants to identify how they will showcase their projects and to whom. This student exemplifies Principle 4 by sharing her project on water conservation through multiple platforms and to a variety of audiences. She wrote several articles for her local news outlets, both online and in print, and presented the results of her project at a town council meeting. She also paired with an elementary school to share the importance of water conservation to the next generation of environmental stewards. In recognition of her efforts, this future conservation leader was just recently awarded an Environmental Champion Award from the Regional Water Company.
And I would just emphasize with this, like this is our last design feature is about internal and external recognition and how important that is for identity, but also your willingness and confidence in pursuing additional pursuits beyond what you might have previously experienced. So somewhere where a teen like this got an opportunity to share in writing and for people to see the work she's done and the value of the work, we could see that given her possible visions of future engagements that she could be part of. So
we've presented our 4 design principles. Now we want to hear from you all. So we want you to pause for a second and think about what of those 4 design principles is something that really resonates with you and you could sort of take and adapt for a program that you facilitate or a program that you run or an idea that you have in the future. So think about it and post your comments below. We're excited to hear how you think this work might fit with the work that you engage in as well.
Switching gears now to our communication pillars. During the program pre-workshop orientation, before introducing our communication pillars, we began a discussion on communication norms by asking our participants, tell us about a time that you worked as a team that went really well. This led into a conversation about expectations from partners and teammates when working as part of a team.
So as they all typed in their answers, this word cloud was built of their experiences with teamwork. And so as we look across this, we can see that some of them are directly related to science, some are related to schools, some are related to communities, some are related to sports. And so as we then work with these teens and adults to think about how to structure positive interactions, we leverage the experience that they've already had in positive teams. You can see the 4 big words there of work, working, balance, and fun. And so a lot of our communication principles and pillars are about how to have more balanced partnerships and how to have fun while still working to accomplish a shared goal. And so we use their experiences to sort of guide them into how do we set up this in an intergenerational setting.
Our first communication pillar is to build relationships. So throughout our programs, and especially during the orientation prompt, we encourage them to get to know their partner, but not only their STEM interests, but also other interests, their interests in arts, extracurriculars, etc. And then also get to know one another's goals, hopes, motivations for coming together and doing this conservation work.
Our second communication pillar is equal partnership in action. Here we encourage our participants the importance of planning ahead and let them know that learning is a two-way street and we encourage, everyone to be a lifelong learner. It's also important for folks to avoid making negative assumptions about their teammates' knowledge or intention. And if you're going to make any assumptions, make a positive assumption that your teammate is thinking positively, just like you.
And our third communication pillar is honor the strengths of all teammates. So recognize and encourage skills, be a lifelong learner. We can always learn new things, and recognize the diverse backgrounds and perspectives and incorporate those unique ideas. So the idea around this one is just thinking about, again, the resources that people can bring and how we can let those be the kind of foundation of the work that they're going to do in this project. We also think about, because we're bringing adults and teens together, and there's pretty typical ways that adults and teens interact in society that are somewhat differentially located in power. So adults usually are sometimes telling teens what to do. We're trying to push back a little bit so that there's more equal sharing and positioning the adult to share the knowledge they have, but also helping the adult realize that some of the power that they might, the ways they might interact with teens might not allow the teens to share what they know. So we're trying to be really deliberate in how we have them think about how they're going to interact with one another and the extent to which both members of the group are sharing their ideas.
Our final pillar is to establish feedback systems. We know that adults and teens sometimes have different preferred methods of communication, and that can lead to conflict. And so we encourage them to talk openly about how they plan to communicate and how they plan to sort of follow through on their plan together, particularly when it comes to feedback. What are they going to do if they disagree with an idea? How are they going to share that they agree with an idea? We talk about compromising and meeting in the middle and following through with our commitments. And we found that if we encourage them to think about this work early on, it makes a much smoother process for their teamwork together.
Our last reflective prompt we'd like you to pause for is to think about, of these 4 communication pillars, do you think one in particular is more difficult for teen and adult partnerships? Just like the design principles, we've reflected on our agenda and our project support, and have built in the communication pillars in multiple parts of our program. So at first, we start off with an orientation where they learn about these best communication practices. And then we revisit these communication practices throughout the times that they're working together and working on these conservation projects.
All right. In conclusion, we're really glad to or happy to share the project that we've done, the communication pillars and the design principles. What we think we have done here is tried to distill like what's most important in the things that we're learning about how to facilitate these workshops. And so the design principles represent what we think are the most high leverage kinds of things that we can do with adult and teens, and those communication pillars kind of represent the same thing. They're the kinds of supports we think we need to either help facilitate or help them reflect on and try to do as they engage in this kind of work. And so we hope both we'll keep iterating it to improve the workshops we facilitate, but also maybe other people can pick them up and continue to improve them in other projects nationally.
And to date, with these design principles and communication pillars in place, it has facilitated over 160 conservation projects, collaborative conservation projects throughout the state. And we are excited to continue in this work for many more years to come. So thank you for joining us. We would like to recognize our funding sources, the NSF Advancing Informal STEM Learning Program, as well as our partners that could not be here today. This work is also very highly collaborative and interdisciplinary. If you are interested in learning more or have any questions, please add any questions down in the discussion board or reach out to us. We would love to hear how you are working with intergenerational partnerships in different locations. Thank you.